There's a moment no one prepares you for. You wake up one morning and the life you built, the relationship, the career, the identity you were so sure of is no longer there. Maybe it collapsed suddenly. Maybe it was crumbling for months and you just couldn't admit it. But now you're standing in the rubble and the terrifying truth hits you. You have no idea who you are without the thing you just lost. And the world keeps moving. People tell you to stay positive, to get back out there, to make a plan. But something inside you resists, not because you're lazy or broken, but because a deeper part of you knows you can't just rebuild on top of ashes. Something has to change first, something inside. If that's where you are right now, stay here, because what we're about to explore isn't a motivational speech. It's not 5 easy steps to bounce back. Carl Jung, one of the most profound psychologists who ever lived, saw these moments of total collapse not as failures, but as invitations, calls from the deepest part of your psyche to finally become who you were always meant to be. Today we'll walk through 6 Jungian insights that reveal why everything had to fall apart and what's actually trying to emerge from the wreckage. And if you've been telling yourself you should be further along by now, that you should have recovered already, that something is wrong with you for still feeling lost, take a breath, because by the end of this, you may see that being lost was never the problem, it was the beginning. And before we go deeper, take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment. Have you ever gone through a time when everything fell apart at once? I'd love to hear your story. Let's begin with the hardest truth first. 1. The life that fell apart was not your real life. Read that again. The life that fell apart was not your real life. It was a construction, a carefully assembled arrangement of roles, expectations, habits, and compromises that you mistook for your identity. And when it collapsed, it didn't destroy you. It destroyed the version of you that was never fully true. Jung understood this deeply. He spent decades studying what happens when people reach a breaking point, when the carefully maintained surface of their existence cracks open. And what he found was not what most people expect. He found that the breakdown is often the psyche's way of correcting course. Your deeper self, the part Jung called the self with a capital S, had been watching for years as you drifted further and further from your authentic path. It watched as you said yes when you meant no. It watched as you chose safety over truth. It watched as you built a life that looked right from the outside but felt hollow on the inside. And then, when the gap between who you were pretending to be and who you actually are became too wide, something snapped. Not because you failed, but because your soul refused to keep living a lie. Think about it for a moment. Before everything fell apart, were you truly happy? Not comfortable, not distracted, not managing, but genuinely, deeply at peace with the life you were living? For most people who experience a major collapse, the honest answer is no. There was always a quiet tension underneath, a feeling that something was off, a persistent whisper that you were settling, performing, surviving rather than living. Jung called this the voice of the self, and the self is patient, extraordinarily patient. It will wait years, sometimes decades, for you to hear it. It sends signals through dreams, through restlessness, through that vague sense of emptiness that no external achievement can fill. But when you keep ignoring those signals, when you keep choosing the familiar over the true, the self has no choice but to intervene more dramatically. And that dramatic intervention, that's your collapse. That's the relationship ending. That's the career imploding. That's the moment when everything you held on to lets go of you. It feels like punishment. It feels like the universe turned against you. But from a Jungian perspective, it's the opposite. It is a brutal, painful, necessary act of liberation. The prison you didn't know you were living in just had its walls torn down, and now you're standing in the open air, terrified, yes, but free. Here's what makes this so disorienting. You had your whole identity wrapped up in that life. You were the successful professional, the devoted partner, the reliable friend, the good daughter or son. And now that those structures have fallen, you don't just feel sad, you feel erased, like you don't know who you are anymore. And that is exactly where Jung says the real work begins, because the person you were before the collapse was not the whole you. It was the persona, the mask you wore to navigate the world. The persona is necessary. Jung never said otherwise. We all need a social face, a way of presenting ourselves that allows us to function in society. But the persona becomes dangerous when you start believing it is all you are, when the mask fuses to the skin, when you can no longer tell the difference between the role you play and the person underneath. The collapse rips that mask away, and what's left? Raw, undefined, uncertain potential. It doesn't feel like potential. It feels like nothing. It feels like standing in a dark room with no walls, no floor, no ceiling. Just you and the vast unknown. But Jung would tell you that dark room is the most important place you will ever stand, because only there, stripped of everything you thought you were, can you begin to discover who you actually are. So if you're in that place right now, if you feel like you've lost everything and you don't know where to start, hear this. You haven't lost yourself, you've lost the costume, and underneath it, something real has been waiting a very long time to breathe. 2. The darkness you feel is not empty. It is full. When everything falls apart, there is a specific kind of darkness that settles over you. It's not just sadness. It's not just grief. It's something heavier, something almost physical. It's as if the light has been turned off inside your chest and you can't find the switch. You might lie awake at night staring at the ceiling, running the same thoughts in circles. What went wrong? What did I miss? How did I end up here? And during the day you move through the motions, grocery shopping, answering emails, nodding at people. But inside there is this vast, heavy silence. Like you're underwater, like everything is muffled. Most people, when they feel this darkness, do everything they can to escape it. They stay busy. They fill the silence with noise, with television, with scrolling, with plans, with anything that keeps them from sitting still with what they feel. And the world encourages this. Keep moving, don't dwell, stay productive, focus on the future. But Jung saw this darkness completely differently. He didn't see it as something to escape. He saw it as something to enter. Jung called it the night sea journey. It comes from an ancient mythological pattern found across cultures. The story of the hero who is swallowed by a great sea creature, pulled down into the depths of the ocean, and must survive the passage through darkness before being reborn. Jonah and the whale, the Egyptian sun god traveling through the underworld each night. The same story told 1,000 different ways across human history. And Jung recognized that this myth wasn't just a story, it was a map of psychological transformation. When your life collapses, you are swallowed. You descend into the belly of something enormous and dark. And everything in you screams to get out, to climb back to the surface, to return to the life you knew. But the journey doesn't work that way. You cannot go back. The only way out is through. And here is what most people miss about this darkness. It is not empty. It is full, incredibly, overwhelmingly full. It contains everything you have ever pushed down, ignored, denied, or hidden from yourself. Every emotion you didn't allow yourself to feel. Every truth you didn't allow yourself to speak. Every part of your nature that didn't fit the life you were living. Jung called this the encounter with the unconscious, and he knew from personal experience how terrifying it could be. Between 1913 and 1915, Jung himself went through a period of intense psychological upheaval. He had broken with Freud. His professional reputation was uncertain, and he began to experience visions, dreams, and inner dialogue so vivid and disturbing that he questioned his own sanity. But instead of running from these experiences, he did something remarkable. He went toward them. He sat with the darkness. He wrote down his visions. He painted his dreams. He engaged in what he later called active imagination, a process of consciously entering the inner world and dialoguing with the figures he found there. And from that dark, disorienting, almost unbearable period came some of the most transformative psychological insights of the 20th century. The material from those years became the Red Book, a work Jung considered the foundation of everything that followed. So when Jung tells you to enter the darkness, he is not speaking theoretically. He walked that path himself. He knows what it costs, and he knows what it yields. What does this mean for you right now in your life? It means the heaviness you feel is not a sign that something is wrong with you. It is a sign that something is happening within you. The darkness is not a void. It is a cocoon. And inside that cocoon, you are being unmade and remade at the deepest level. The emotions that surface during this time, the grief, the anger, the fear, the confusion, these are not obstacles to your healing. They are your healing. Each wave of feeling that moves through you is carrying something up from the depths of your unconscious, something that needs to be seen, felt, acknowledged, and integrated. You might find yourself crying for no apparent reason. You might feel sudden bursts of anger at people who don't deserve it. You might have dreams that are unusually vivid, strange, symbolic. You might feel drawn to activities you haven't done in years, painting, writing, walking in nature, sitting in silence. All of this is the unconscious speaking, and your job, your only job during this phase is to listen, not to fix, not to analyze, not to rush toward resolution, just to listen, to be present with what arises, to let the darkness show you what it holds. Jung said something that might comfort you here. He said the experience of the self is always a defeat for the ego. Let that sink in. The ego, your conscious identity, the part of you that had plans and expectations and a 5-year timeline, that part has been defeated, and it feels terrible. But the self, your deeper, wiser, more complete being, is not defeated. It is emerging, and it can only emerge when the ego steps aside, willingly or otherwise. Your collapse forced the ego aside. The life that fell apart was the ego's construction, and now in the darkness the self is beginning to speak. Quietly at first, in symbols and feelings and dreams. But if you listen, if you have the courage to sit in the dark and pay attention, you will begin to hear a voice you may not have heard since childhood. Your own, your real one. And I know what you might be thinking. How long does this last? How long do I have to sit in this? And the honest answer is, as long as it takes. That's not comforting, I know, but the darkness is not on your schedule. It's on the soul's schedule, and the soul doesn't care about your calendar. It cares about your wholeness. So be patient with yourself. Be extraordinarily, radically patient. You are not behind. You are not stuck. You are underground, where the roots grow. And roots don't grow in the light. 3. The person you were before had to die. This is perhaps the most difficult thing to accept. And yet, until you accept it, you cannot move forward. The person you were before the collapse, the one who had the relationship, the job, the plan, the identity, that person is gone. not injured, not on pause, gone, and they are not coming back. You might be holding on to the hope that things will return to normal, that you'll wake up one morning and feel like yourself again, the old yourself, the one who knew what they were doing, who had certainty, who had direction, but that self belonged to a life that no longer exists, and trying to resurrect them is like trying to put a butterfly back into its cocoon. Jung understood death and rebirth as the central pattern of psychological transformation. Not literal death, of course, but the death of an old identity, an old way of being, an old story you told yourself about who you are. He saw this pattern everywhere, in mythology, in religion, in dreams, in the lives of his patients. The old self must die so the new self can be born. And this death is not metaphorical in the way you might think. It feels real. Physically, emotionally, psychologically real. You grieve for the person you were. You grieve for the future they were supposed to have. You grieve for the certainty, the comfort, the familiarity of that old life. And that grief is legitimate. It deserves space. It deserves tears. It deserves to be honored. But, and this is crucial, you cannot grieve forever. At some point, the grief must transform into release. You must let the old self go. Not forget them. Not pretend they never existed. But let them rest. Thank them for what they carried you through. And then turn to face what comes next. There is a concept in Jungian psychology called the death-rebirth cycle, and it appears in virtually every major spiritual and mythological tradition. The phoenix burning to ash before rising again, Persephone descending to the underworld each winter and returning in spring, Christ dying on the cross and rising 3 days later, Osiris dismembered and reassembled. The same pattern, repeated endlessly across cultures and centuries. And the reason this pattern is universal is because it reflects something fundamentally true about the human psyche. Growth requires destruction. New life requires the death of the old. You cannot become who you are meant to be while still clinging to who you used to be. But here's what makes this so painful. The ego does not want to die. The ego, your conscious sense of self, your identity, your story, it will fight with everything it has to survive. It will bargain. It will deny. It will try to reconstruct the old life out of scraps and memories. It will tell you that if you just try harder, work more, reach out to that person one more time, apply for that same kind of job, you can get it all back, and maybe you can reassemble something that looks like the old life. But it will feel hollow, because you are no longer the person who fit inside it. You have already begun to change, whether you realize it or not. The collapse has already altered something deep within you, and trying to go backwards is like trying to unknow something you now know. Jung was direct about this. He said you cannot become what you need to be by remaining who you have always been. And he understood that the period between the death of the old self and the birth of the new is the most painful, most confusing, most terrifying phase of human development. He called it the liminal space, the threshold, the in-between. In the liminal space, you are nothing. You are no longer who you were, and you are not yet who you will become. You are formless, undefined, floating, and every instinct in your body tells you to grab onto something, anything, to anchor yourself. A new relationship, a new job, a new city, a new identity to replace the one you lost. But Jung would urge you to resist that impulse, to stay in the in-between, to tolerate the discomfort of not knowing, because it is precisely in that space of not knowing that the deepest transformation occurs. Think of it this way. When a caterpillar enters its chrysalis, it doesn't just grow wings. it dissolves. Its entire body breaks down into a kind of biological soup, a formless, structureless liquid, and from that liquid, something entirely new takes shape. The butterfly is not an upgraded caterpillar. It is a completely different creature built from the same raw materials. That is what is happening to you. You are in the chrysalis. You have dissolved. And I know it feels like falling apart, because it is. But falling apart is not the same as being destroyed. You are being reorganized at the deepest level, and what emerges from this will be something you could not have planned, predicted, or engineered. It will be something that could only come from surrender. So let the old self go. Mourn them, honor them, but do not try to bring them back. They completed their chapter, and the next chapter cannot begin until you close this one. For your shadow holds the key to what comes next. Here is something that might surprise you. The answer to your crisis, the blueprint for your new life, the energy and creativity and power you need to rebuild. All of it is hiding in the part of yourself you like least. Jung called it the shadow, and the shadow is, in simplest terms, everything about you that you have rejected, denied, suppressed, or hidden from conscious awareness. It is the collection of traits, impulses, desires, and abilities that didn't fit the life you were living, so you pushed them underground. Maybe you were told as a child that anger was unacceptable, so you learned to swallow it. Maybe you were taught that ambition was selfish, so you played small. Maybe you discovered early on that being too sensitive got you hurt, so you built walls. Maybe you had a creative gift, a wild imagination, a fierce independence, but the world told you to be practical, to be normal, to fit in. And so those parts of you went into the shadow. The shadow is not evil. This is one of the most common misunderstandings of Jung's work. The shadow is not your dark side in the way movies portray it. It is your hidden side. And hidden does not mean bad. It means unintegrated. It means you haven't yet found a place for these parts of yourself in your conscious life. And here is the connection to your collapse. The life that fell apart was built by your conscious ego, the part of you that adapted to the world's expectations. It was built with the traits you were allowed to express, the acceptable parts of your personality. But it was built without the shadow, without your full self. And that is precisely why it was incomplete. That is why it felt hollow. That is why it felt hollow. That is why, despite everything looking fine on the surface, something always felt missing. What was missing was you, the real, complete, unedited you, the you that includes the shadow. So now, in the aftermath of your collapse, the shadow begins to surface, and it can be deeply unsettling. You might find yourself feeling things you've never felt before, or at least never allowed yourself to feel. Rage, desire, ambition, grief so deep it scares you, a hunger for something you can't name, a restlessness that won't settle. These are not symptoms of disorder. They are symptoms of the shadow coming into the light, and they are essential to your rebuilding. Jung said that until you make the unconscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. This is one of his most important insights, the patterns that led to your collapse, the choices that seemed inevitable, the relationships that always ended the same way, the career paths that always led to the same wall. These were not random. They were driven by unconscious material, by shadow elements that were running your life from behind the scenes. The partner you chose who turned out to be wrong for you, the shadow had a hand in that choice. The career you pursued that left you empty, the shadow shaped that path. The way you responded to conflict, the things you tolerated, the boundaries you couldn't set, all of it was influenced by parts of yourself you didn't even know were there. And this is why the collapse is so valuable, because it breaks the pattern. It interrupts the unconscious cycle. It forces the shadow material to the surface where you can finally see it, name it, and work with it. So, how do you work with the shadow? Jung laid out several approaches, and all of them begin with the same principle: honest self-observation without judgment. Start by paying attention to what triggers you, not in the superficial sense of what annoys you, but in the deep sense of what produces an emotional reaction that seems disproportionate to the situation. When someone's behavior fills you with rage or contempt, ask yourself, what is it about this that disturbs me so deeply? Is there something in them that I also carry but have refused to acknowledge? Pay attention to your dreams. The shadow speaks fluently in the language of dreams. Figures that appear threatening, seductive, repulsive, or fascinating in your dreams are often shadow manifestations, parts of yourself projected onto symbolic characters. Write your dreams down. Sit with them. Don't rush to interpret them. Let them work on you. Pay attention to your projections. Jung observed that we tend to see our shadow in other people. The qualities that infuriate you in someone else are often the qualities you have disowned in yourself. The person you judge as too aggressive might be carrying your unintegrated assertiveness. The person you dismiss as too emotional might be holding your unexpressed vulnerability. The person you envy might be living out the potential you've been too afraid to claim. This is uncomfortable work. Looking at your shadow means looking at parts of yourself you've spent years avoiding. But this is where the gold is. Jung actually used that word, gold. He said the shadow is 90% gold. The vast majority of what you've suppressed is not darkness, it is unrealized potential. It is the artist you never became, the leader you were afraid to be, the lover you never let yourself express, the fierce, alive, passionate, creative being that got buried under years of adaptation and compromise. Your collapse is giving you access to this gold. The walls are down, the defenses are weakened, and the shadow is closer to the surface than it has ever been. This is your chance. Not to be destroyed by it, but to integrate it, to take back the parts of yourself you abandoned, to become whole. And when you do, when you begin to integrate the shadow, something remarkable happens. You stop attracting the same patterns. You stop choosing partners who mirror your wounds. You stop building lives that look good but feel wrong, because you are no longer operating from a half-self. You are operating from a fullness that was never available to you before. The shadow holds the key. The parts of you that you were most afraid of are the parts that will save you now. 5. You are not going backwards. You are spiraling deeper. One of the most tormenting feelings during a period of collapse is the sense that you are regressing, that you are going backwards, that all the progress you made, all the growth, all the progress you made, all the growth, all the hard-won stability has been undone. You might find yourself acting in ways you thought you had outgrown, crying like you did when you were young, feeling the same insecurities you felt as a teenager, repeating emotional patterns you thought you had resolved years ago, and it fills you with shame. You think, I'm too old for this. I should be past this. What is wrong with me? Nothing is wrong with you. And you are not going backwards. Jung saw psychological development not as a straight line, but as a spiral. You revisit the same themes, the same wounds, the same core issues, but each time you encounter them at a deeper level. The first time you dealt with abandonment, maybe you were 20 and you handled it with denial. The second time, maybe you were 30 and you handled it with anger. And now, after your collapse, you are meeting that same wound again. But this time you have the depth, the awareness, and the life experience to face it fully. It feels like regression because the territory is familiar. The emotions are familiar. The fears are familiar. But you are not the same person who faced them before. You are older, wiser, more seasoned. And this time, you have the chance to go all the way down to the root, to the place where the pattern was first created. This is the spiral nature of individuation. You don't leave your old wounds behind. You circle back to them with greater understanding. And each revolution of the spiral takes you closer to your center, closer to the self. Think of it like this. Imagine you are walking down a spiral staircase in a tower. Every few turns, you pass a window that faces the same direction. Each time you see the same landscape, but each time you are lower, closer to the ground, seeing it from a different angle, noticing things you missed before. The view is the same. Your vantage point is completely different. That is what's happening when old patterns resurface during your collapse. You are not repeating the past. You are revisiting it from a deeper, more conscious place. And this revisitation is not a setback. It is the work. Jung was careful to distinguish between neurotic suffering and meaningful suffering. Neurotic suffering is the suffering that comes from avoiding the truth, from running away from what needs to be faced, from repeating patterns unconsciously without learning from them. It goes in circles and leads nowhere. Meaningful suffering is different. Meaningful suffering is what happens when you face the truth, even though it hurts. When you sit with the wound instead of numbing it. When you let the old pain come up because you know that this time finally you are ready to feel it all the way through. And this distinction is everything. Because the pain you're feeling right now, the rawness, the vulnerability, the feeling of being taken apart, this is not neurotic suffering. This is the most meaningful suffering there is. You are not running. You are not avoiding. You are right here in the middle of it, facing what most people spend their entire lives trying to escape. That takes courage. An immense, quiet, invisible courage that the world doesn't know how to celebrate. There are no medals for sitting with your pain at 2 in the morning. No applause for choosing not to numb yourself. No awards for the slow, silent, grueling work of becoming whole. But the psyche sees it. The self sees it. And every moment you stay present with what you feel, you are building something that cannot be taken away from you. Not an external structure that can collapse, but an internal foundation that is unshakable. An identity rooted not in what you do or what you have, but in who you are at the deepest level. This is what it means to spiral deeper. Each layer of pain you move through, each old wound you revisit with new eyes, each shadow element you integrate adds to this foundation. And slowly, gradually, in ways you might not even notice at first, you begin to feel different. Not happy necessarily, not fixed, but more solid, more real, more yourself. You might notice it in small moments. A morning where you wake up and the weight is slightly less heavy. An afternoon where you find yourself laughing and realize it's the first genuine laugh in months. A night where you sleep deeply and wake with the faint impression of a dream that felt like a message, like something inside you is starting to speak again. These are signs of the spiral doing its work. You are not going backwards, you are going inward, and inward is exactly where you need to go. 6. What wants to be born will not look like what died. This is the insight that changes everything. If you can truly let it in, the new life that is trying to emerge from your collapse will not resemble the one that fell apart. It will not be a repaired version of the old. It will not be the same structure with better materials. It will be something different, something you could not have imagined from inside the old life, because the old life didn't have room for it. This is both the terror and the promise of genuine transformation The terror because you don't know what's coming. The promise because what's coming will be more authentically yours than anything you've ever built. Jung used the term individuation to describe this process of becoming your unique, complete self. And individuation doesn't mean becoming perfect. It doesn't mean reaching some idealized version of yourself. It means becoming whole, integrating all the parts, the light and the shadow, the strength and the vulnerability, the masculine and the feminine, the known and the unknown. It means no longer living as a fragment of who you are. It means living as a full, complex, contradictory, beautiful totality. And the life that expresses this wholeness will necessarily look different from the life that expressed your old, partial self. Maybe you spent 20 years in a career that used your intellect but starved your creativity. The new path might involve work that feels alive in a way your old career never did, not because it's more prestigious or profitable, but because it engages parts of you that were never invited before. Maybe you spent years in a relationship that was comfortable but never truly intimate. The new connection, when it comes, might feel unfamiliar, even uncomfortable at first, because it asks you to show up without the masks you used to wear. It might be less polished, but more real, less safe, but more alive. Maybe you spent your whole life in a city, a community, a social circle that reflected who you used to be, and now you feel drawn to something completely different. New places, new faces, new rhythms. Not because you're running away, but because the new you needs a new environment. Trust those impulses. They are not random. They are the self reaching toward its expression in the world. But, and this is important, don't rush it. One of the most common mistakes people make after a collapse is trying to build the new life too quickly. They feel the urgency, the desperation to have ground under their feet again. And so they grab the first thing that looks like a future, a rebound relationship, a hasty career change, a sudden relocation driven more by escape than by calling. Jung would counsel patience. The new life, like any living thing, needs time to gestate. You wouldn't dig up a seed every day to check if it's growing. You water it, you give it light, and you wait. In the same way, the new you is germinating in the dark soil of your collapse. It is taking shape in your dreams, your longings, your quiet moments of clarity. It is forming itself from the raw material of everything you've ever been and everything you've ever suppressed. And when it's ready, it will begin to push through the surface in ways you cannot predict. You might feel a sudden pull towards something you've never considered before, a subject that fascinates you, a skill you want to learn, a conversation with a stranger that opens a door you didn't know existed, a book that falls into your hands at exactly the right moment, a dream that gives you an image so vivid and compelling that you can't shake it. Follow those threads. They are the new life speaking. Not in grand declarations, but in whispers, nudges, quiet attractions that your ego might dismiss as impractical or unrealistic. But the self doesn't speak in business plans. It speaks in yearning. It speaks in resonance. It speaks in the sudden, inexplicable feeling of, yes, this is alive, this is real, this matters. And as you follow those threads, something begins to happen. Slowly, tentatively, a new structure starts to form. Not from the top down, not from a master plan, but from the inside out, from the core of who you are, outward into the world. And this structure, because it grows from your authentic center rather than from external expectations, has a resilience the old life never had. It can bend without breaking. It can adapt without losing its essential shape, because it is not built on who you think you should be. It is built on who you actually are. Jung described this process as the creation of a new center of personality. He said that in the first half of life, we build our identity around the ego, around achievement, adaptation, and social approval. But in the second half, or whenever a major collapse forces the transition, the center of personality shifts from the ego to the self. And the self is a much wider, deeper, more stable foundation. It includes everything the ego excludes. It holds paradox without contradiction. It can contain both joy and sorrow, both ambition and surrender, both solitude and connection, without needing to resolve them. Living from the self doesn't mean you stop having an ego. It means the ego becomes a servant rather than a master. It means you make choices from a deeper place. It means the life you build reflects the whole of who you are, not just the parts that are socially convenient. And that life, the life built from the self, is the life that was trying to emerge when everything fell apart. It was always there, waiting underneath, like spring underneath winter. Your collapse didn't destroy your future. It cleared the ground for it. Now let's pause here for a moment, because I know that everything we've discussed so far can feel abstract when you're in the middle of real pain. It's one thing to understand the theory of transformation. It's another to live it when you can barely get through the day. So let me speak directly to where you might be right now. Maybe you're lying on your couch at 3 in the afternoon, unable to move, and you feel guilty about it. Maybe you're going through the motions at work, smiling when you're supposed to smile, and falling apart the moment you're alone. Maybe you've been telling everyone you're fine when you're not fine at all. Maybe you stopped eating properly, or you're eating too much. Maybe you've stopped sleeping, or you're sleeping all the time. Maybe you've lost interest in things that used to bring you joy. Maybe you feel numb. Maybe you feel too much. Whatever your version of this looks like, I want you to know something. You are not doing it wrong. There is no correct way to fall apart. There is no elegant, dignified, Instagram-worthy version of having your life dismantled. It is messy. It is ugly. It is humbling in the most profound sense of the word. And anyone who tells you to just think positive or look on the bright side has never been where you are. But you are still here. You are still breathing. You are watching this right now, which means some part of you, however small, however buried, is still reaching toward something, still searching, still hoping. And that part, that tiny persistent flame that refuses to go out, that is the self. That is the indestructible core of who you are, the part that survives every collapse, every loss, every death of identity. It survived childhood. It survived heartbreak. It survived every betrayal and disappointment and failure that has ever touched your life. And it will survive this. So be gentle with yourself. Treat yourself the way you would treat someone you love who is going through the hardest time of their life. You wouldn't criticize them. You wouldn't rush them. You wouldn't tell them to get over it. You would sit with them. You would let them cry. You would make them tea and tell them it's okay to not be okay right now. Do that for yourself, because the person going through this collapse deserves that kindness, and that person is you. Now, let's return to Jung's wisdom and explore what lies ahead on this path. The archetype of rebirth. What ancient stories tell us about what you're going through? Throughout every culture in human history, there are stories of descent and return. The hero who falls into the underworld and comes back transformed. The god who dies and is resurrected. The ordinary person who loses everything, wanders in the wilderness, and emerges with wisdom they could not have gained any other way. These are not just stories. Jung understood them as archetypes, universal patterns embedded in the collective unconscious of humanity. They are blueprints for transformation that exist in every human psyche, including yours. And the reason they appear in every culture is because the experience they describe is a fundamental part of being human. You are living inside one of these stories right now. You are the hero in the underworld. You are the wanderer in the wilderness. You are in the belly of the whale, in the darkness before the dawn, in the winter before the spring. And here is what every single one of these stories tells us. The hero returns, always, without exception. But the hero who returns is never the same person who descended. They come back changed, deepened, carrying something they didn't have before, a gift, a piece of wisdom, a hard-won truth that can only be found in the depths. In mythology, this is often represented as a treasure, a golden fleece, a magic sword, a sacred object. But psychologically, the treasure is self-knowledge. It is the integration of the shadow. It is the discovery of the self. It is the wisdom that comes from having been broken open and choosing to put yourself back together, not according to the old blueprint, but according to a new one that honors the full complexity of who you are. Jung said that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, and that privilege is earned through exactly the kind of suffering you are enduring right now. Not suffering for its own sake, not suffering as punishment, but suffering as initiation. The fire that doesn't destroy you but transforms you, the way heat transforms raw metal into a blade. You are being forged, and the forging hurts. But what is being created is something of far greater value than what was lost. The danger of rebuilding too soon. I want to spend some time on this because it is one of the most common mistakes people make in the aftermath of a collapse, and it can set you back years. When you're in pain, you want it to stop. That is natural and human. And the fastest way to make the pain stop seems to be to rebuild, to get a new job, a new relationship, a new identity, to fill the empty space with something, anything, that gives you a sense of who you are again. But if you rebuild before you've done the inner work, before you've sat with the darkness, confronted the shadow, and allowed the old self to fully die, you will inevitably recreate the same life you just lost. Maybe it will look slightly different on the surface. Different partner, different job, different city. But the underlying patterns will be identical, because the patterns don't come from your circumstances. They come from your unconscious. And if the unconscious hasn't been addressed, it will simply project the same dynamics onto new situations. Jung saw this happen countless times. A man leaves one unhappy marriage only to create an identical dynamic with a new partner. A woman quits a soul-crushing job only to find herself in the same position at a different company. A person moves across the country to start fresh, only to discover that the problems they were running from live inside them and are already unpacking in the new apartment. Wherever you go, there you are. And until you address the there, the internal landscape, the unconscious patterns, the shadow material, no external change will produce lasting transformation. This is why the liminal period, the uncomfortable in-between, is so precious. It is the window of opportunity when real change is possible, not change of being. And it requires you to resist the urge to rush back into definition, to tolerate not knowing who you are for a while, to live in the question rather than grasping at premature answers. I know this is hard. I know it feels like you're wasting time. I know the world is telling you to get back on your feet, but the world doesn't know what's happening inside you. The world doesn't understand that you are in the middle of a transformation that will determine the entire course of the rest of your life. And rushing through it to meet other people's timelines would be a profound disservice to yourself. So take the time, take all the time you need. The world will still be there when you emerge. And when you do, you'll be ready for it in a way you never were before. Practical wisdom for the journey. Jung was a psychologist, not a guru, and he believed in practical application. So let me offer some concrete guidance drawn from Jungian principles for navigating this period of collapse and renewal. Start a dialogue with your inner world. This is perhaps the most important practice Jung ever developed. He called it active imagination, and it involves consciously engaging with the images, feelings, and figures that arise from your unconscious. You can do this through writing, through art, through movement, through sitting quietly and allowing images to arise and then interacting with them. The key is to approach your inner world not as something to be controlled or analyzed, but as something to be met, listened to, respected. Write every morning if you can. Not a journal in the traditional sense, though that can help too, but a free-flowing, unedited stream of whatever wants to come through. Don't censor yourself. Don't worry about grammar or coherence. Just let the pen move. You may be surprised by what appears on the page. Thoughts you didn't know you had. Feelings you didn't know you were carrying. Insights that seem to come from somewhere deeper than your conscious mind. Pay close attention to your dreams. During periods of upheaval, the unconscious often becomes more active, and dreams can become unusually vivid and symbolic. Keep a notebook by your bed. Write down whatever you remember as soon as you wake, even fragments, even single images. Over time, patterns will emerge. Recurring symbols, figures, landscapes. These are messages from the self, and they are tailored specifically to your journey. Spend time in nature. Jung believed that the natural world has a healing effect on the psyche, not because of any mystical property, but because nature operates according to the same patterns that govern the unconscious. The cycles of death and rebirth, decay and growth, darkness and light, you see them everywhere in the natural world. And being in that environment reminds your psyche, on a level below conscious awareness, that what you're going through is natural, that collapse is part of the cycle, that spring always follows winter. Be very selective about who you allow into your life during this time. Not everyone will understand what you're going through. Some people will try to fix you. Others will try to rush you. Others will be uncomfortable with your pain and will pressure you, consciously or unconsciously, to pretend you're fine. You don't need those people right now. You need the rare ones who can sit with you in the dark without trying to turn the lights on, who can hold space for your process without needing to manage it, who trust that you are finding your way even when it doesn't look like it from the outside. And if you don't have those people, that's okay too. You can be that person for yourself. And sometimes a therapist, particularly one trained in depth or Jungian psychology, can be an invaluable companion for this journey, not to tell you what to do, but to help you listen to what your psyche is already trying to tell you. Finally, resist the urge to define the outcome. Your ego wants a plan. It wants to know where this is going, what you'll become, how long it will take, what the new life will look like. But the self doesn't work that way. The self reveals itself gradually, one step at a time, one dream at a time, one moment of clarity at a time. Your job is to take the next step, just the next one, and then the one after that, and slowly, step by step, in a way that your ego could never have engineered, a new life will begin to take shape around you, not because you forced it into existence, but because you created the conditions for it to emerge. You faced the darkness, you felt the pain, you let the old self die. You reclaimed your shadow, you listened to the whispers of the self, and from all of that something was born. something real, something durable, something durable, something that fits you in a way nothing has ever fit before, the return. Coming back to the world as a different person. There will come a moment, and you may not recognize it at first, when the heaviness begins to lift, not all at once, not dramatically, more like the way dawn arrives, so gradually that you don't notice it's getting lighter, until suddenly you can see you'll be doing something ordinary, making coffee, walking down a street, reading a sentence in a book, and something will shift. A feeling of presence, a quiet sense of arrival. Not that everything is resolved, not that all the questions have been answered, but that you are standing on solid ground again, different ground than before, but solid, and you realize that you've changed, not in the ways you expected, not in the ways you might have chosen if you'd been given the option, but in ways that go deeper than anything you could have planned. You see the world differently now. You see but differently. You see yourself differently. There's a steadiness in you that wasn't there before. Not the rigidity of someone who has it all figured out, but the flexibility of someone who has been broken and healed, and knows that they can survive what once seemed unsurvivable. You'll find that your tolerance for inauthenticity has decreased dramatically. The small talk that once seemed fine now feels unbearable. The relationships that were based on convenience or habit rather than genuine connection will start to fall away, not angrily, but naturally, like leaves that have completed their season. And in their place, you'll find yourself drawn to people and conversations and experiences that have a quality of realness, of depth, of soul. You'll discover that you'll become less interested in impressing people and more interested in connecting with them. Less concerned with how things look and more attuned to how they feel. Less driven by should and more guided by must. The choices you make will come from a different place, not from fear or obligation or the desire for approval, but from a quiet knowing that lives in your center. And you'll notice something else. Your compassion has deepened, not just for others, though that will be true too, but for yourself. The relentless inner critic, the voice that told you that you weren't enough, that you should have done better, that you were falling behind, that voice hasn't disappeared entirely, but it has lost its authority. Because you know now, at a cellular level, what it means to be human. You know what it means to suffer and to survive. You know what it means to be brought to your knees and to stand again. And that knowledge makes you gentle, both with others and with yourself. This is what Jung meant by wholeness, not perfection, not the absence of struggle, but the integration of all that you are, the light and the dark, the strength and the wound, the certainty and the mystery. A life lived from this place of integration has a different quality than the life that came before. It is less polished but more real, less impressive but more meaningful, less safe but more alive. And here's the beautiful paradox that Jung understood. When you stop trying to be what the world wants and start being what you truly are, you actually become more valuable to the world, not less, more. Because the world doesn't need more masks. It doesn't need more personas. It doesn't need more personas. It doesn't need more people performing wellness and success and certainty. What the world needs, what it has always needed, is people who have done the hard work of becoming real. People who have walked through the fire and come back with something to offer that can only come from the depths. Your collapse was not a detour from your life. It was the door into your real life. Everything before was preparation. Everything after is the fullest expression of who you came here to be. And if that sounds too grand, too poetic, too much for where you are right now, that's okay. You don't have to believe it yet. Just hold it somewhere in the back of your mind. Let it sit there like a seed. And one day, when you're ready, you'll look back at this time, at this dark and painful and bewildering time, and you'll understand that it was the most important thing that ever happened to you. Not because the pain was good, but because of what the pain made possible. So here is what I want to leave you with. 6 truths drawn from the depth of Jungian psychology for anyone who is standing in the ruins of a life that fell apart. First, the life that collapsed was not your true life. It was a construction built from compromise and adaptation. Its falling was not your failure. It was your liberation. Second, the darkness you feel is not empty. It is full of everything you have suppressed, avoided, and denied. Enter it. It holds what you need. Third, the person you were before had to die. This is not punishment. It is the prerequisite for genuine rebirth. Let them go with gratitude and grief. Fourth, your shadow holds the key to what comes next. The parts of yourself you have rejected contain the energy, creativity, and truth you need to rebuild. Face them. Reclaim them. Fifth, you are not going backwards. You are spiraling deeper. The old wounds resurfacing are not signs of regression. They are invitations to finally heal at the root. And sixth, what wants to be born will not look like what died. Trust the process. The new life is forming in the dark, and it will be more authentically yours than anything you have ever known. Maybe you came to this video hoping for answers, for a plan, for someone to tell you what to do next, and I can't give you that. No one can, because the answers you need are not in any video or book or conversation. They are inside you, in the depths of your own psyche, waiting to be discovered. But what I can tell you is this: you are not broken. You are breaking open, and there is a world of difference between the two. The Japanese have a practice called kintsugi, the art of repairing broken pottery with gold. The philosophy behind it is that the breakage and repair become part of the object's history, something to be honored rather than hidden. The cracks, filled with gold, make the piece more beautiful than it was before it broke. You are being repaired with gold right now. You can't see it yet, but one day you will, and you will understand that every crack, every fracture, every moment of shattering was making you into something luminous. Jung spent his entire life studying the human capacity for transformation. He saw people at their lowest, their most broken, their most lost, and he saw them emerge again and again, more whole than they had ever been. Not because they were special, not because they had some advantage, but because they had some advantage, but because they had the courage to face themselves, to enter the dark, to let go who they thought they were, and to discover who they actually are. That is your invitation now, not to fix yourself, not to rush toward a new life, but to be here, fully here, in the rubble and the silence and the not knowing. To trust that the psyche knows what it's doing, even when you don't. To believe, even against all evidence, that something beautiful is being born in the dark, and it is. So the next time someone asks you how you're doing and you don't know what to say, you can simply say, "I'm finding my way," because you are. One step at a time, one breath at a time, one dark and beautiful night at a time, you are finding your way home, not to the home you lost, but to the one that was always waiting inside you, and that home, the one built from truth and shadow and gold, that home can never be taken away.